Oh, that's muted because it's us. Gotcha. I'm gonna lower that.
Good afternoon, everybody. Want to welcome you to our school board meeting today being August 6th. And we will call this meeting to order. If you will please join us in a moment of silence. Thank you. And now we will all please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. Madam Clerk, will you please call roll?
Yes, Madam Chair. Ms. Bryant,
Here.
Ms. Burns,
Here.
Ms. Cooper,
Here.
Ms. Dooley,
Here.
Mr. Meyer,
Here.
and Ms. Richardson is absent, I believe. Well,
Yes, I'm here. I didn't hear you. That's okay. Thank you so much. And now may I have a motion for approval of our agenda?
So moved.
Ms. Burns with the motion. May I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Cooper. Any questions or discussion? All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Great, thank you. Now we are here at our first opportunity from comments from members of the community or students. If anybody is here in the media center, if you would like to make public comment, please approach the podium. And we do have an opportunity towards the end of the meeting as well. Please state your name and you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Zanita Howard, and I'm here because I attended an information session earlier this week with I guess it's called the book club that took place at Summit. And I just wanted to say how impressed I was with the outcome of that book club. To hear testing scores went up, to hear that a kid passed all their SOLs, mapping scores went up, was just amazing to hear. Just from that little bit of time that the volunteers were able to meet with the kids was very impressive. To hear from Chelsea Jones Stratton and Juanika Howard really gave me the wanting to volunteer. So I have signed up I'll give my lunch break hour and commit this year to helping out with that club, because I feel like just to hear that a kid passed all their SOLs from a book club, that's a lot. That's amazing. And so I wanted to thank you all for allowing that club to go into the schools to do that work, because that's amazing and that's great work. So I just came today just to thank you all for allowing that club and allowing them to expand to hopefully go into another school. And I just wanted to show my thanks for that, because to hear testing scores go up, that means a lot to me. And it means a lot to hear that a kid passed SOL. So I just wanted to come just to say thank you all for allowing that program and allowing that to expand.
Thank you so much. That's wonderful to hear. We appreciate you coming to share that. All right, anybody else? All right, thank you. We are moving now to adoption of our consent agenda, please. So I need a motion for that.
So moved. Second.
So that was Ms. Burns with the motion and Ms. Bryant with the second. Any questions or discussion? All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Great, thank you. And now we're moving to action items. So we have 9.1, which is the approval of final property settlement and operation assurances for VDOT land acquisition. So we need somebody to make that, or go ahead, Ms. Powell. Okay, so if we do have the motions ready, Ms. Dooley?
Yes, so Madam Chair, I would like to move that the school board approve the granting of a right-of-way agreement to the Virginia Department of Transportation, VDOT, for the purpose of permitting the construction of the Rio Road / John Warner Parkway roundabout project over those portions of the Charlottesville Albemarle Technical Education Center, KTEC, property identified on VDOT's plans for the project, with such approval being expressly conditioned upon the school board's legal counsel approving the final indemnification provisions contained in the right-of-way agreement, and further authorize the chair and/or the superintendent to execute the agreement and any related documents necessary to effectuate this action.
Thank you for the motion, Ms. Dooley. May I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Ms. Cooper, thank you. Any discussion or questions around that? All in favor, please say yes.
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 Any opposed, say no. All right, thank you. And then we have part 2, I believe.
Yes. I move that the school board accept the Virginia Department of Transportation's offer to purchase those portions of the Charlottesville Albemarle Technical Education Center, KTEC, property identified on VDOT's plans for the Rio Road / John Warner Parkway roundabout project for the total purchase price of $191,985. Authorize the conveyance of such property to the city of Charlottesville for the purpose of the city's subsequent conveyance to VDOT in furtherance of this project, and authorize the chair and/or the superintendent to execute the deed, closing documents, and any other instruments necessary to complete the transaction consistent with the terms of VDOT's offer.
Thank you for the motion. I need a second, please.
Second.
Second from Ms. Bryant. Any questions, discussion? All in favor, please say yes.
Yes. Yes.
Any opposed? Great, thank you. All right, and our next action item is 9.2, and this is our 2026-2027 policy update from May VSBA policies, and this will be Ms. Swift. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, and Dr. Gurley. At the June school board meeting, we presented the VSBA May 2026 policy updates for your review. And so at this time, we ask that you take action on these policies as presented.
Looking for a motion from somebody, please.
So moved.
Ms. Burns with the motion. I need a second. Second from Ms. Cooper.
Ms. Dooley.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Dooley made the second. All right. Yes. All right. And are there any questions or discussion around these policies? All right. All in favor, please say yes.
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 Any opposed? Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we are now to our items for discussion, and the first item we have is the Ed Tech Overview and Policy First Read, and that will be from Mr. Cuomo. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. This is going to be quite an extensive presentation, so I just want to make sure that we all take a deep breath and buckle up. But I wanted to go over as much as I could thoroughly so that we could all be on the same page when we have this discussion. As you know, digital wellness and device usage is becoming a pretty hot topic, and here at Charlottesville, we have a great opportunity to set some standards and get things right and get things on track for a great policy discussion and development. So in May, I presented an overview of some of the national and state laws, the guidelines, and the policies that centered around technology use. We had a discussion that stated to date, there's no current law in the books in Virginia or this nation that requires reduction in screen time, but there are a lot of legal guidelines for internet web filtering, data privacy, instructional requirements. We have our own generative AI policy, which was passed back in 2024. We've got student rights and responsibilities that give pretty good guidance on how students are to make expected choices with school-issued technology. We touched on tools that were available to the school division for staff and for families to help support that ongoing effort, and when to limit technology when it wasn't the best choice. And finally, I shared that we currently do not have a policy that's specific to ed tech and screen time or screen limits. We agreed this would be discussed again in August with some updates and next steps. So tonight, I would like to present to you a summary of those topics discussed and through this nice presentation that I made without the use of generative AI. We'll just keep moving through. I will advance the slides. I think I can multitask that. So the overview of tonight's discussion will be that recap. We'll go over some key terms and definitions. And the reason why I want to focus on those definitions is because there are nuances in definitions in technology and how it's used. And I just want to make sure that when we're speaking the language that I speak regularly, that we're all speaking from the same set of definitions. So it's important that we go over that. I'd like to go over some of the policies and laws that are in this nation again and the state. I want to go over our current state of technology in terms of instruction, access, filters that we're using to keep kids safe, and the overall usage from where we are now. There's always a future facing, and there's always the under construction lens that we heard so eloquently yesterday. So you might hear a few things like punch lists and construction under construction, just because I think it's relevant, very relevant to this topic. Finally, after all that, we will go over the educational technology policy, and then we will talk about some next steps. So from there, I move to our key terms and definitions. Real quick, educational technology is essentially that definition on the board there. It's essentially any division-approved digital device, software application, online platform, et cetera, used to support instruction and assessment, communication, and learning. And when I say ed tech, that's kind of what I'm talking about. That can exist in web-based platforms, software. Most places are moving to software-based through websites. Some other key terms: instructional screen time. We hear that a lot in the news and in politics. Essentially, that's the amount of time kids are spending on a screen. It's pretty generic. It does not include, when they define these things, it does not include what a teacher shares. Like, we've got that nice screen over there. Teachers have that in their classroom. That's not considered instructional screen time. That's just a presentation tool for teachers. It is also, we don't count the brief administrative uses for school, like for devices like the use of attendance taking or tasks related to classroom management. And then also for instructional screen time, I'm not including in this definition state tests that have to be completed online. One of the bigger definitions, I should highlight this one, is active screen time. We hear a lot about reducing screen time, but I want to be as clear as possible in my current state of knowledge with technology. Active screen time would be like the good technology that we want. You know, if you go to your doctor, sometimes there's good cholesterol and bad cholesterol. There's good fats and bad fats. Active screen time, we're going to get into that, is essentially the content that we would want kids to have. It's mentally engaging. It requires ongoing user involvement. It helps in the creation process. It's coding. It's designing. It's interactive. It's the stuff that we like to see. It's the things that we consider good learning, good education. Good instruction involves the use of active screen time. If I had to pick an ugly cousin of active screen time, that is going to be passive screen time. Passive screen time is the essence of what cell phones do to our society. I don't know, have you ever been talking to somebody, having an engaging conversation, and they have a watch on and their watch stings, and you get one of these, and you know that person is out and not focused. Well, passive screen time is what we see when you're dealing with endless scrolling, not much or any learning is taking place. And it's typically things like Candy Crush, if I had to give a real good example. And so people could argue, and some of the grown-ups argue, yeah, it promotes problem solving, pattern recognition. But the reality is it's designed to hook you, it's designed to addict you, and it's built off that foundation of the more time we spend on it, the more that the company benefits from it, and the more that they can tout that it's being used. But passive screen time is not the kind of technology use that we want to see here in Charlottesville City Schools. And so if I have to use the analogy from Dr. Gurley's message yesterday, it's this. The use of passive screen time is going to be a huge punch list in our process here this year. For years, tech companies have shown educators data on how effective ed tech is for educational use. When I was a former IT RT, I prided myself. You were considered a deficient teacher if you did not use technology through and through. And I'm not saying we shouldn't use it, but we have to know the difference between active and passive, because the independent research is painting a much different picture than many educators even today might know. Defining this screen time and these ineffective technology tools is going to take a very defined scope of work. It's going to require a lot of project management from a lot of different people. I know everything points back to technology with that, but this is an instructional, this is a family, this is a community, these are all the pieces that will be put together. And it's going to require us to engage all of those stakeholders. And it's going to be a very large and ongoing punch list. And YouTube is on this list, but I want to note that with an instructional purpose, YouTube can provide students with access to information that can be beneficial. I mean, I use YouTube for tutorials, but at the same time, there may be times where I go for, how to change the brakes in my car, and then 4 hours later, I realized that I just watched like 4 recaps of stages of Tour de France, and I'm wondering where my time went. Like that is not that's how things can turn so quickly. And these foundational designs for some of these programs are designed to do that. They're designed to take you away from active learning and put you in the passenger seat as a passive learner. So those are those key terms I want to make sure we go over. I am going to brush through this a little quickly because law and code can be boring, but it's also very powerful. So in the world of education, we are known for our acronyms. And so you may all be very familiar with FERPA, COPA, and SIPA. The Family Education Rights and Privacy Act, back to 1974 that started. And these things usually take place when something's going so wrong in our society that it needs a fix. And so these laws were attempts at fixing what we know and knew back then to be very important pieces of legislation and societal issues. So the FERPA is privacy of students and education records, about personal identifiable information. 20-something years later, you got the Children's Online Privacy Protection, again, helping to regulate websites. It puts restrictions on ed tech companies about information they collect and about accounts that can be created. We move up just a couple years to 2000. You have the Children's Internet Protection Act, which is all about internet safety, which requires us by law to filter internet. So these are guardrails that are starting to be built. These federal laws, I call these milestones. But once we have these milestones in place, we have to start drilling into state laws. And I will say this list is not extensive. We could take hours for this. But when we move into the regulatory things from our state, we come across things like this, the digital integration standards of learning. We know those as SOLs. And yes, they do have computer science SOLs standards, and they do have digital learning standards. This requires us by law to pass instructional goals, instructional guidelines, instructional methods that say, hey, students need to do these things in order to graduate, in order to be successful on their grade levels. No worries. Okay. So with these digital citizenship and online education tools and standards, we move forward into how we got our acceptable use policy. And that's 2006. We have laws passed that say we have to provide digital citizenship curriculum. We have to teach about cyberbullying. We have to teach about mental health harms of technology. Fast forward to 2020, right around the time of COVID, we start passing health and safety best practices guidelines. All of these things designed to say we need to put guardrails on the work we're doing with students. After that, even into 2021, we start creating more and more documentation on these classroom device health and safety guidelines. This is the, don't stare at a computer screen too long. You should be getting up. You should be actively doing physical activity. All of those are suggestive. There's no law. There's just a best practice, a guideline, so to speak. And we ramp up to as soon as here 2024, where we were struggling with cell phones. And we jumped ahead of it, and we started with how do we fight this? And we decided bell to bell was the way to go. And the state followed suit and required that phones, watches, earbuds off and away the entire day. And we know what a struggle that has been, and we've seen successes with that. But that's now codified into law. More recently as well, in 2024, we have stricter data protections for schools when they issue ed tech tools. And then in 2025, 2025 starting in 2025, but we researched it and began it in 2024, you have the use of generative and artificial intelligence policy and regulations. All those things are the guardrails for the current laws of where we are. And even as much as 2026, we get to state legislation where they started SB 568, I think it's HB 1486. We get to that space where they say, should we put limitations on screen time? The original bill was written as screen time limitations. It fell short, maybe it lost support. I think they saw there were some negative and unintended consequences of putting a limit on technology. I don't think they quite got it right by having active and passive. However it came out, the new law basically removed the limitation and is requiring us to provide instruction on the health and well-being of computer use in schools. And we know the research shows, hey, guess what? We know when kids spend too much time on that passive technology and they're on those computers for hours a day, it does lead to things like lower academic achievement, higher rates of distraction, disruptions to the classroom, loss of learning time. All the things where if you made a list of things you wanted to keep out of schools and keep out of classroom lessons would make that list. And we cannot, I'll repeat it again, we cannot overlook this new independent research coming out there that's showing the way the brain interacts when we do things like handwriting and taking notes, when we read paper book copies versus digital copies. So all things that are so new to us in research, not new to us in education. So all of those things gets us to, we've just started at the national level, state level. Now we're just going to zoom in on how this all impacts the way we do things in Charlottesville City Schools. Because we just digested 50 years of laws. So here our current postures are. And I do want to point out, we had that thing called COVID right in the middle of everything. And COVID really, from a digital standpoint, I just want to say that I know that COVID right away made it that everybody needed a device. Everybody needed internet access. Everybody needed to get online to these classes. And that kind of was a lot. And we had a lot of money to buy a lot of different things. And I say it proudly. We spent a lot of money on building private fiber around the school division. We made sure students had their devices, but we did not, I don't think we overdid it. But still, we were living in a time with kids had so much access, and the tech companies loved it. And so you have this post-COVID saturation, and you have these same time, you've got these studies showing the negative results of too much technology. So where are we and where do we go? These next few slides are just going to talk about where we are, and they're designed to be transparent. Some things we are starting new this year. Other things we have to put some guardrails in place as we move forward with this policy. But for a typical classroom, and I tried to highlight the changes for a typical classroom for this year. Two big changes are: in the past, preschool students had access to iPads and small group devices, and teachers could choose to use them for watching short videos or drawing or writing handwriting practice or other instructionally relevant things in there. Dr. Korab and I have spoken. No technology that will be, student facing will exist in class use they won't be carrying anything. They won't be taking anything home. The other big change, and this one was mentioned in May, and it has taken place. It's taken a lot of effort, but Dr. Thompson and I and other stakeholders had met. We spoke with teachers, and we made the decision to move the posture of middle school, which has typically been you get a device, you carry it, and you take it home. We have changed that posture to there will be a cart in every academic instructional space at the middle school, and the computers will be in that cart. I call it off and away. It's not a legal requirement, so I don't want to be confused with cell phones, but the off and away position is how every class should start. I've heard, we haven't even started school yet. People were seeing me in the hallways yesterday, just saying thank you, thank you, thank you. They feel like this is going to be a great way to help focus middle schoolers. And I know focusing middle schoolers is a challenge without technology. So this starting place is a good place to be. K-5 will follow that same space, right? The in-class use devices will be off and away in the cart. They will not hallway carry. They will not take home. And by hallway carry, I mean you get a device that's like you keep it with you all day. There may be some nuances to that where someone needs to take a device to an iSTEM special lesson, but for the most part, off and away. High school is a very complex monster. There are lots of classes at this time that require technology. They require the access. We did not have the time between April, May, and June and July to implement something so drastic to shock teachers and make that posture. But we talk about punch lists. It needs to get looked at. It needs to get spoken about, and conversations need to take place. When we get to guardrails in terms of monitoring devices. So we get to the access point where devices are away in some of those grade levels. Now, what happens when students have devices and they're in class? How are they used? What are they able to access? Well, a few years ago, we switched from one monitoring system to a new monitoring system called LineWise, which, if I had to pick the best of the best, we feel like LineWise is the best of the best. And what LineWise does is it allows us to quickly block certain technologies. We positioned with the rollout of LineWise last 2 years ago, we positioned ourselves as blocking YouTube as a default, blocking most games as a default, blocking Gen AI as a default, quickly allowing teachers to get visibility into what their students are doing. Obviously, teachers are walking around the room and engaging with their students, but they can see a dashboard on their computer that shows what kids are up to quickly allow in a block. It also sends alerts to various stakeholders, and mostly in my team, if someone is trying to get at something that's not appropriate, it gives us a quick reaction time for us to see what that is, address the issue, engage the administrators, and help students to make good choices. And we revolve that around acceptable use policy. And we call that line wise. That's basically at the division level. And when teachers use their tool, that's kind of 2-in-1. Teachers use something called ClassWise, and that again is, I was talking about, that live screen monitoring, the blocking of those sites to focus in. Teachers can push a button and pause internet for all students in their class. If the device happens to be out, they can limit the websites students go to. It's a lot of control. It also requires a little bit of training for people to do. Feedback on that has been very, very positive in the last years, and we're looking forward to that being. I'll talk more about what that could look like for next steps. The final component of how we can help with guardrails with device access on CCS issue devices is a program called Custodio, which is going to be known as LineWise Parent. Custodio is a renowned program. It's a parent-facing and guardian-facing tool. It's available to all CCS families. They sign up. Again, I send them an email and sign up. Custodio gives visibility to parents to screen time and access for CCS issued devices. It can show a history of the visited websites. If the device is home, the parent can use Custodio to set an offline schedule for that device. They can pause internet for that device. They can enact additional restrictions. And they also will give you the opportunity to add one personal device outside of CCS, like a phone. And now we know there are companies out there, like Apple has a family plan, Android has Family Link with Google. But Custodio's been, again, very positive for the parents who've used it. I'll talk next steps for that, but it's a free tool, and it provides some insight to families and gives them a little more control on the at-home experience with the CCS device. So when we get past all of those guardrails, we have to start looking at how much are kids using the devices at school. And I have to acknowledge this in full transparency. All right, the numbers on this slide are pretty much like all under construction. Right? We don't have, they sell it, and I'll talk about that later, but we have currently not purchased a tool that measures the number of minutes students spend on their devices each day. I thought that would be more of like an inclusive feature of the ecosystem we use in. And I was just thinking, like, well, who owns our ecosystem? Oh, it's Google. I'm sure they don't want that, maybe. I'm not sure. But in full disclosure, we don't have a tool. So I am currently not able to say this is how many minutes, I can verify with data that they do spend on the computer. This data was collected by asking coordinators and some coaches around the division to go, hey, look at our core subject areas and what do our core subject areas say about the use of technology and the support tools that they offer that are technology rich. And so these numbers talk about what we use in those 4 core subject areas. But the reality of this is we provide teachers with a lot of opportunities to support their students in different ways. And so those teachers may choose to use some technology that's out there that's not going to be included on this list. And those also things, we have things like free time, and we have things like stations work that students are using a computer for. Those are all things I know to be current practices, and that's the reality of where most schools are these days. But looking at this, our lower numbers essentially showcase, I guess I would rate it fair to satisfactory when I think about the number of total minutes and I say, that's in a week. That's what the requirement is, right? So our K-1 students are about an hour a week. And if you divide that by 5, I mean, you're looking at like 10 to 15 minutes a day. And that's prescriptive by nature in some ways, but it's not terrible based on what is provided. Like I said, we have to have a longer conversation about some other tools. As you move up through 2nd and 3rd grade, the numbers just start adding. They start adding a social studies component to that. So you get into that 95, so an hour and a half-ish per week. So you can do some simple math divided by 5, and you can see an average number of minutes to be there around roughly like 20 minutes a day, give or take. Then you have this big jump like, whoa, like what's going on here with the 4th and 5th grade in middle school? And I just want to say this, when you get to this higher grade level, I want you to know where these numbers come from because it was given to me. Grades 5 and 6 have multiple teachers for their subject areas. Grades 5 and 6 at Walker last year used a tool, it was called GimKit or Kahoot. And what those are, they're game-based trivia tools that are used by teachers for like exit tickets and quick checks. So it's almost like the Family Feud game and the Jeopardy game where except kids log onto a computer, the teacher has their teacher-facing screen with questions, kids punch in answers, they go through this back and forth, and then those data points go to the teacher so the teacher can reflect on how kids are doing. Is that active technology? Is that passive technology? All things for us to think about. But they could potentially have 15 minutes per class. And you may have an hour of that over the course of a given week. And so that has to be at least included for what we know. And then in high school, middle school does kind of the same thing, but that's where those numbers come from. And then high school has a less prescriptive nature for nothing in literacy that's required as the curriculum, a lower level of social studies. I wasn't aware of Kahoot that came out prescriptive where it was like the whole grade level's doing this. So those were the numbers as I know them to be from this past year as a gauge. Everybody still with me? I want to just kind of make sure we don't lose the energy in all of this. So in terms of what's next, right here we have this is what's under construction, right? We made some big changes to our posture for device access. And we may find that taking away preschool devices was the best thing we've done for preschool. We have our K-5 posture, which is devices off and away. And then we have our middle school where we decided it was the best interest of the student success to keep those devices in carts and start them off and away. And our high school is this posture where they get a one-to-one and they take it home. I mean, essentially, we have to take this, bring it to our stakeholders, get their feedback, take the research that we know, and start making some difficult choices well, they could be easy choices, but we have to start making choices for the best way to present this device access. And I've seen it where you have K-2, they have little to no use of technology, and they just try to keep it for essentials. We have a reduction of technology that you can put in there. Middle school, this could be, like I said, this could be a great change. The fear of making too much change too fast is if you don't have the right people on board, you may not get the right answers. If I think it's a good idea and I block, I say, all right, I'm the technology director. So guess what? You don't get any more devices. Like I might get some dear bad technology director messages from parents and from teachers and from students. Like we need to make sure that kids can access what they have to learn. And we need to have conversations about where this posture lies. But this change is new, so we're gonna learn a lot on how beneficial this is as we collect data on this new structure. And I always tell students, I always tell teachers, I always tell anyone who listened to me, like we can't overlook the responsibility that a student has for making choices, right? You can take a pencil and turn it into something that could be very destructive in nature. Students using technology, knowledge for them is super important. Education on how technology should be used, understanding their rights and responsibilities, understanding how to make expected choices, right? We want kids to learn how to use tools, understand what's good, what's not good. Because kids these days, even like Gen AI, they think it's perfectly fine to get an answer from Gen AI. They think they're doing the work, and that's a terrible posture, and we need to help change that. But we want to make sure students have that responsibility on them while we move forward in this process. So we have a great tool in ClassWise. It's a classroom management tool. And a great prescription start for under construction would be to continue to provide teacher training. And we can talk about what that looks like. And Dr. Gurley and I can talk about that. Instructional leaders can talk about that. But offering more of this workshop and class for the times that teachers are going to use technology will give them a great filter to control exactly where students are supposed to go, so that when we get to that active screen time use, we're seeing it used in a way that's benefiting students. And same with Custodio. It's, we try to send out communications, and for me, I'd say this needs to go out more and more and more and more, especially with our older students. The feedback has been fantastic, but talking about what's next in terms of engaging our community and our FACE team, working with our PR team and Ms. Samalchek and her team, getting this information out to families, offering informational sessions to them, giving them the tools that they can use to help at home with devices are home, giving them knowledge. We had a great public comment testimonial, right? Reaching our families is super important for us. And Custodio is a tool that some people say, I didn't even know that existed. Wow, that's a great tool. It is a great tool. But that will provide just further support for our families and help inform them on how to make great help them at home when they are maybe struggling to get a device under control for someone who's using it more than they should. So what does that bring us? That brings us to our educational technology policy statement. All of these things are great guardrails, but a policy will give us, I think, teeth to bite into the problem, while others are dancing around it and starting to recognize things, and the federal government is dancing around it and trying to pass legislation, while the state is going, one way to realize that these things there are negative impacts of stuff. I present to you a policy statement that's a starting point that basically says, hey, we want to build something. And in order to build something, we gotta take what we know, we gotta put some things under construction, and we gotta put some stuff together, and we gotta learn some things. We gotta put some tasks down for the stakeholders to go and take part of. We have to evaluate those tasks, and we have to build something here, and we've got to build it, and we've got to present it back and showcase what we've done. And we know that's going to be hard work, and we know that's going to be messy work, and we know that we're not going to get to that finish line and stamp it that it's done. But I present to you the policy statement. I know you probably have had a chance to read it, and I'm going to do something that's a no-no in slides. I'm going to read it verbatim because I want to make sure that we all hear it, and we'll go. The school board recognizes that educational technology can enhance teaching and learning, expand access to educational resources, support communication and collaboration, promote the development of digital literacy skills. The board also recognizes the importance of balancing technology use with students' developmental needs and milestones by ensuring opportunities for direct instruction, for reading, for writing, discussion, hands-on learning experiences, physical activity, and interpersonal interaction. And the purpose of this policy is to establish expectations for purposeful and developmentally appropriate use of educational technology and student screen time in the school division. Is it perfect? No. Is it going to require a lot of work in the regulations? You bet. It's going to be, like I said, a lot of work. So our timeline I propose is that we've heard this policy info. We take some time to consider it. We come back in September and we pass this policy. And we make our first presentation of some regulations based on the work that we've done up until September. And then we get to work on those guardrails. We get to work on those staff trainings. We get to work on those feedback tools. We get to work on talking with our stakeholders. We get to work on looking at the EdTech tools that currently exist in our ecosystem. And we get to put a punch list on them to look at them and decide, are they beneficial? Do these independent researchers support any of these tools, or do we have to overhaul just about everything and get rid of a lot of the stuff that we thought, that we were told, that we were shown data, all the things that you talk about, they give us. they told us about how great all these things were. And some of them still are, but I think we're at a crossroads where we need to evaluate for ourselves, using the new knowledge, using what we know, what is going to be best for students, and take anything that does not meet our needs and criteria off the plate. And then we do this throughout the year. We update our regulations. And after a year of under construction, after a year of doing this work with the right people involved, we develop that regulation. And as you know, regulations, the reason why they're so great is because they're much easier to change and much easier to adapt. So those are the timeline for pieces that I would propose go along with that policy. And I'm sure that there may be questions that should be asked tonight. And I'm happy to engage in that conversation now. I've been talking for quite a while, so we just take a minute. And like I said, I'm happy to answer questions as they come up.
Thank you, Mr. Como. I'll start down. Who would like to start? Mr. Meyer, you want to start?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Como. Very thorough presentation. I appreciate it. I also appreciate, again, some of the posturing changes. I think we discussed a lot of those last year too, and some desires around that, and especially at the middle school. Excuse me. I'm happy to see that posturing change. I think it's a good start. Can you? I do like overall. I think where what the policy is stating. I'm very interested to see some of the regulations. It's obviously kind of, I think the policy states kind of our values, and I appreciate that and what we want. And I'm interested to see. I think we've heard a little bit about your regulations, probable regulations, but to see a little bit more on those. I just want to be clear, if we have students with special needs, English language learners, who, again, sometimes I think some of these programs might be better suited for and can sort of assist, they would still have access to those programs?
Yes, I did have that in my handwritten notes here, and I skipped over that. I want to also clarify, students with an IEP, with an individualized education program or plan, those tools, those assistive technology tools, those goals and objectives that are part of helping that student access curriculum, that is not part of the, screen time debate. This definitely would include access for those students to access the curriculum and tools that they need to be successful.
Great. And with the change, the middle school, again, some families are better resourced than others. This might be the opportunity for a student to have a piece of equipment. Would they still be able to potentially take a device home and check it out in some way, ad hoc manner or something like that? Or have we thought through that quite yet?
So we got as far as getting all the devices into the classroom and getting the carts. I was made aware of some coursework that was required to be done online and at home. And so we do have, I'll call it a limited number of devices, but I am not positioned at this point if, 500 kids said I need a device to take home. That is not has not yet been discussed. I would put that into the under construction, talk to families, is this a need? But we did set aside approximately 100 devices for the instructional need that we knew of. We have not yet addressed but what if I want this at home to use a device at home? I'd want to get more context on what are we doing with that device, what's its purpose, and certainly a point of conversation.
And I think one of the things that I would share is that there won't be an equity issue here in terms of there's nowhere in the curriculum where the teacher is requiring the student to go home and type a 3-page paper, and we know that some kids may have a computer and some kids don't. That's not anything that's embedded in the curriculum where there would be some type of unintended consequence because of this. So I do know that much. We can definitely speak confidently to that. And I also want to make sure that I address the regulation part on what that will look like. What we've discussed in our ELT meetings is that the initial regulation is just going to be us pulling together what the expectations like that Mr. Cuomo's outlined here. So, no devices at the middle school, no devices in preschool. That's going to be our initial, that's what gets us through the evaluation period. And then by the end of the school year, we should be ready to then go live with something that's even more robust for our community. So we can drop in the charts and all that good stuff.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. I don't have any more questions.
Oh, thanks.
That's Brian.
This is less of well, thank you so much for your presentation and for all of the work you put into that. This is less of a question, more of just a comment for us to think about. Though it may not, to Dr. Gurley's point, be a requirement that a student do some sort of coursework outside of school that requires a device, I just want us to think about the unintended gap that we could be creating, because having access to a computer outside of school as a middle school student, an eighth grader who could be enrolled in high school courses early or is interested in doing college research, AVID program. I think about all of the programs that I was even a part of when I was in eighth grade, and I just don't want us to unintentionally create a gap. We do know that students who have access to computers, not to go against any of the points you made, there is a lot of passive screen time that's happening both in school and out of school. But just the opportunities or the things that they might have access to with a computer could be something that we should just think about. And I think a way that we could think about that is students who have been screened for financial or other forms of insecurity for resources at home in other ways could be on our radar to think about for those types of opportunities. I know that the West Haven Community Center used to have a computer lab and things like that. I'm not sure how those things still function. So if we're thinking about filling in gaps, working with community partners. But yeah, some students start to think about college or other opportunities when they're in middle school. And so we just don't want to limit their exposure to that. But thank you for all of your work.
Sure. Thank you for that feedback.
Yeah, thank you. Ms. Burns?
Thank you. Appreciate the presentation, the work that's gone into this, and really taking the suggestions from the board and working with Dr. Gurley and his team. So thank you. How do we envision, well, first, how were teachers and staff engaged in developing this policy? How did we get here?
This was largely a board and executive leadership starting point. And diving into that research and diving into where we were, it felt like we needed to put a foundation together. I would call this the starting point. And I think even just with the previous comments, there's so many things to consider for us to try to put it all together and write it down on papers. It's just not going to work. So this essentially, this is saying, hey, we know what we know, and we're learning a lot about screen time having a negative influence on instruction. We've seen enough independent research. Sort of the blinders have been taken off of some of these larger ed tech companies. And this swell of a movement, when I think about my job as this role, my job is to always keep kids in the productive struggle of learning. And when we did the Gen AI policy, you just realize quickly that kids do not have to struggle very much to make this happen. And so presenting this policy is, if I had to call it as an analogy, right, it's we're at the start of the race now. We know there needs to be guardrails. So we've kind of defined, there's a lot of stuff that's out there that's designed to put guardrails in place, but sometimes you have to bring it to the front of attention to make next steps.
No, I
So-
think that's great, and I appreciate this approach versus just continue to work session things until we get to a policy. So I appreciate this approach. How will educators be informed of these changes and, how to use LineWise, how to use the educator platform side, and what's inappropriate use?
Yeah. So right now the next steps, I've done a lot of that training, but it's not the best model being the expansion of this for me to be yes, let's me be the technology guru for the division. I think that involves instructional leadership conversations. There's a lot of great models that work for anything. So there's train the trainer models where we have our instructional leaders, our instructional coaches. But honestly, the best first start is we've shared a lot of this information from principals to classroom teachers. So if I had to envision like class-wise, the expectation will be that, we've got tools to share. We share those with teachers, and we will continue to share. I envision there will be staff meetings and staff trainings and PLCs where, it makes sense to train grade levels that use technology. So that's how I see it going in terms of class-wise. And as far as changes, like I was saying earlier, if a teacher's accustomed to using 10 programs throughout the year and they've planned well and they're master teacher, it doesn't make sense to just rip it out of their hands without a process. And what we've talked about a lot with the leaders in the school division are we need to figure out, we know where we are. This is a really good alignment document, and it points us in the right direction. And we established this rubric tool. I think in my mind, I envision us developing this rubric tool for software, defining it, getting teachers involved who use it, educating people on what's considered best practice and how ed tech is not always the best choice. And if a decision is made to sunset a program, again, there may be some where we say, hey, look, you're going to get to this date and we're going to put something else that's more productive for students in its place. There's some expressions where in order to give up something, you can't just give it up. You have to replace it for it to be successful. So if I'm going to just take out the independent workstation that I've been accustomed to doing with my students, and I just wake up on a Monday and I get an email from Mr. Cuomo that says, by the way, we're no longer using this program. I didn't give anybody the opportunity to give me feedback on it, and I didn't give anybody the opportunity to help fill that gap with something else that could be used.
Yep. And also, let's make sure we promote our guide to the school year. And on page 13 and 14, we have the class-wise, we have the teacher monitoring aspect of it, and we do have the resources available to our families where they can get the app. And so just in that document, which is beautiful, it's being mailed to every one of our families. So let's just make sure we keep promoting families that all of these resources are in a one-stop shop. QR codes you can scan and get the apps. And so, page 12, 13 and 14.
Great. Appreciate that you talked about replacing one thing for the other, which goes into my next question about off and away expectations for our students. And just, I know we've worked really hard as a division, as a district, to implement off and away, and really appreciate what's gone into that. I just want us to be mindful of what are we replacing that with for our students as well, because that is a give and a take on our students who may be addicted to that form of technology. And so how are we promoting healthy habits versus relying on like a punitive momentary enforcement opportunity? So just hopeful that we can build in some framework, additional supports for our students, and how we're, really promoting the health aspect of technology and why we're moving this way versus just it's not good for you and we're the adults in the room, and just really making sure that we're thinking of our kids and we are replacing an addiction, and how are we teaching them what healthy looks like.
I think a point well taken. And I think just as like at the high school, we've replaced, cell phones with games and cards and all those various things in the lunchroom. I think our clinicians and support staff in the building, I think, that's definitely something Ms. Rasnick and team have had on their radar in terms of like, how do we work with teachers on identifying like, where students need more support. Again, as we have conversations with our families, located in the guide to the school year, also spaces where they can learn about resources where they can support their students.
And I had this again. I try not to use my notes because it's more engaging, but I did have a little quote that speaks perfectly to that, because we are going to be required to teach this to students. That is going to be state code as of July 1. But the quote that I had in here was, right, intelligence is power. right? Intelligence is power and wisdom is knowing how and when to use it. And so I think when we substitute and replace some of these habits and with this knowledge, we will create powerful students who will know the difference and when to use these tools and when not to.
And it is great. I appreciate the work that's gone into it. I just recognize that a lot of people wear smartwatches. So how do we really start to drill down
Yeah.
on some of these additional pieces of equipment on our students? So thank you. Appreciate
Yeah.
the work.
Ms. Cooper?
Great presentation, a lot of information. My question was in reference to, how are we going to like just track, teachers' feedback of like what's working well and what's not? And will that information come back to us?
And it's my goal for this to oversee this project as sort of like the project manager. I mean, one of any project we do here in the school system is very reliant on teacher feedback. And again, yesterday I got to see a lot of friendly faces, and a lot of people came up to me and said, "If you put together a committee, I want to be on it." But I think we've learned valuable lessons along the way through similar experiences of best practices when we want to engage teachers. So yes, there will be a intentional, direct ways in which we collect data from teachers, and that's quantitative and qualitative, because there are teachers from last year who've presented here that have given some overviews and insights into what a screen-free day looks like for a student. And I really look forward to that feedback. So that's my plan, and I plan to utilize the experts in our staffing from leadership down to classroom teachers and in between to collect that feedback and present it to you in a way that makes sense and tells a story of where we are.
And in our last meeting, Ms. Cooper, we also talked about just pulling together some type of written report as a result of all the evaluation we've done so that it lives in one place. I don't know that it necessarily because we are responsible for the regulations. We talked about like, so what does the end of the school year look like? I do think that it's like a written report of all the findings, because that's what we'll be spending time. We are going to evaluate every single one of our tools. And so what better way than to dump it all in one space so that you can see like, these are the tools we were using and we're saying this one will continue, this one won't, and then we can give the justification why. So you can etch that in ink that that's one artifact that will come out of this process for this school year.
Thank you.
Okay.
Ms. Dooley?
Yes, thank you. I'm sitting here just thinking about just wanting to be aware of unintended consequences, especially in the lower grades. The state is not caught up, especially in terms of high stakes assessments that are still given on a computer, map testing. So just wanting to ensure, like I support removing screens from those lower grades, but don't want students' first experiences with high stakes tests to then suddenly be on a computer. And then we're assessing whether they know how to use the computer and not actually the content. And then also just like how this is going to trickle out and impact budget considerations in elementary. I know that a lot of the opportunities to work in small groups for teachers to have those small reading groups or small math groups intervention is the ability to have other students
On screen.
occupied doing something, which is oftentimes on a screen. I know that screens haven't been there for forever, but ensuring, is there professional development that's needed? What takes the place that's been referenced before? Also thinking like, has there been conversation with our partners at UVA and other teacher prep programs? Even going back to when I was at UVA in teacher training, it was very technology driven. And so do we have teachers that have never experienced classrooms that have not been really driven by the use of ed tech? And so is there an opportunity to, bring their expertise along? And perhaps it's not the expertise that we want because it may still be operating in the philosophy that we're trying to move away from. But I think that's all I have. I'm also just very curious about the social studies and what Dr. Brown has to say about why the social studies numbers, those minutes seemed really high relative to the others. And so just
Sure.
curious.
You left one thing off of your list.
Just one?
We also have computer science standards
Yeah.
that we have to follow at the elementary level. And it says, so one of the standards, can the student turn on a computer? And so there are a lot of standards that are required by the VDOE. So it's not like we can just walk away from computers, because those are standards that we are required to follow starting in kindergarten. And so we do feel like there's spaces where we can address some of those standards, such as iSTEM and various spaces. But we do have to be mindful that we have to sign off on the standards of quality, that we have addressed all of those standards. And so, as people listen to this, yes, we do see the benefits of reducing the screen times, but then there's also this concurrent factor that we have to address, that the state, while they are saying no screens, they're still telling us that students are required to use them, and this is how they want to see it happen. And some of those things require a lot of time in front of screens. So we have to definitely find the balance here. Everyone will not be happy in this process.
I think one other area that I just want to highlight and think is worthy of continued creativity and discussion is just LMA, walk, some of our credit recovery programs that where the efficiency is dependent upon online coursework,
Right.
and just not wanting to lose sight of, finding that balance of still providing these opportunities for credit recovery for, whatever it might be, but also ensuring that those students get the benefit of reduced screen time as well.
And that's why that part Mr. Cuomo started us when he talked about the definitions, really us as a school division categorizing the passive screen time versus the active screen time, and then like looking at the return on investment, like why would a student at the high school or even at the middle school, we think about some of our students in New Pathways who may be using some of the online programs. So what's some of the benefits, but then also helping to reduce some of that screen time where we can.
Yeah, great questions, great comments. I mean, and along those lines, then I would take, as far as the credit recovery programs that we're offering, a step further, and then to ask, well, can we be supporting these students differently without the screens? And I know that's probably a human resource, but just to kind of ask that, I think it's
And we do. I mean, I think that's definitely the benefits of like how our LMA is set up. I mean, there are 4 core content teachers. And so you see, you very much so see, as you do an observation of the class, Miss Rose may have her students on the computer because sometimes you may have 9th through 12th graders, but she's also differentiating so that they're not solely reliant on the computer for the instruction. And you see that in Mr. Grady. You see that with Mr. Lyle and Mr. Loeffler. So they do that. And I think sometimes we may be in there when we see them on the screen, and it was one moment in time, but I would say that there's a very good balance that we have already. And I think we can continue to, are there other areas where we can capitalize with supporting our students? But I do think that that's one area we're already doing a good job. I see all the team over there shaking their head. That's one area we do a good job, I think.
great, thank you. Along the lines of the class-wise for the teacher monitoring, that's something, and correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is this has kind of been an optional use of teachers to use that. Is there any way to kind of make it like it's automatically turned on and then they get to adjust it based on course content and what's going on there?
Yes, so the training of that is essential because it's a pretty powerful tool. There are things that you want to do in real time, but then again, as a teacher, you don't want to spend 15 minutes setting up your class for success. So you can schedule a class. So if a teacher knows, like right off the bat, We go top down. If we know a site isn't not good at all and somehow it's passing through our filter, we just block it on our end and teachers don't have to worry about it anymore. But if a teacher knows in their planning that they're going to use a couple of websites, they can pre-plan so that at the start of that time, the class automatically launches in the background, automatically blocks the sites, automatically pauses the internet, automatically applies a focus. And yes, it has been optional at this point. It's been a tool. And depending on the varying level of use, people have used it more or less. So I don't know if that skirted your question or answered it, but it's possible to set things up ahead of time so that when that class begins, the rules are already in place and there. There is no requirement for a teacher to have, if they don't have it on, it defaults back to our policy, which blocks a lot. I mean, we turned off so much in the first year of implementation and again, it wasn't just like Mr. Cuomo's going to Pat's going to push a button and too bad for all of you. Ha ha. You know, we had discussions with principals and said, hey, I have gotten this many complaints and this many instances where teachers are frustrated because YouTube has been a distracting part of the school day with the device. Can we do something about that? So we ask the why. Why did that happen? Why did that happen? Why are we here? Why are we here? And it comes back to somebody made a decision a long time ago that said this needs to be accessible. And so we just questioned it. And so we blocked it. Social media has always been blocked. Streaming services are always already blocked. You know, you read those stories, I will tell you, unless a student is intentionally violating acceptable use policy, they are not going to Netflix, they are not going to music services, they are not going to streaming, they are not going to YouTube, they're not going to social media. It's such a large category of blocks. But yes, if a teacher doesn't use by choice class-wise to fine-tune their instruction, they're relying on the
Default.
the division level filters.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
Probably a big question and to be determined, but related to the punch list for the passive screen time and the work that you say that's going to take to really work through that. I mean, do you have a sense yet of what that might look like, or is that?
Well,
down
I'd
the road?
imagine, and I know there are some independent companies out there outside of the ed tech companies that are starting to do this work, but a lot of it is pioneered work right now. So my envisionment of this is, you know, we need the right people at the table and we need the right criteria. We need the right blueprint in order to move forward. So I think that we need to define the tool, make it aware, and I have the ability to capture all of that with programs. We need to define the tool, we need to define its purpose, and then we need to define the type of technology it is based on a rubric to come up with, is this active? Is this passive? What's its purpose? Is it something we could replace if we wanted to? And what does that timeline look like to make sure that everybody who's currently using it is trained and made aware of the why behind the move and what will take its place? That's where I've gotten to so far.
Great,
With that punch list.
Thank you. And then along the way, you referenced, and I can't remember which slide it was, but, you know, going back to the stakeholders. So who in your mind are the stakeholders?
I think it's got to be every walk of person who represents our division. We need students, we need teachers, we need families, we need instructional leaders, we need experts from the community. We need just a wide range of people who are willing to provide the feedback. When I did the Gen AI policy, people were worried I was going to handpick like my tech friends, and I intentionally picked people I knew who would cause that friction in the group and challenge those components. But if I had to pick a list, I would definitely want a board member. I'd want teachers. I'd want families, some students. I would want instructional leaders and some community experts. And I don't know if that's going to look like, hey, we're all going to meet, or we're going to have, you know, sessions like that. That's where I'm not dialed in on specifics, but I envision that's where it will start.
Okay. And then I similarly had that thought that Ms. Dooley expressed as far as just the teacher prep programs and what they're pushing, and just a concern about that. I don't know if concern is the right word, but just
Sure.
yeah, how we would address that or interact with those programs as those teachers are hired and brought into the division. And then my final comment, which I had shared out, I think in an email format, was just looking at the policy and just didn't know if people want some more time to look at that as far as board members and giving feedback, but it was just, I think it's a great starting point. But just flipping, I felt like the purpose of
Oh,
this
yeah, that-
policy should
I
go
re- mhm.
first, but that's just my opinion and I didn't know. Just to
Yeah.
kind of, but I will defer to what everybody else wants or why you chose to present it that way.
As we develop this policy in this manner, I think that when you look at how it starts, it's like giving the background knowledge to it. And then the conclusion of it, where it says the purpose of this policy is the lead into the regulation. So it's giving you some background knowledge that, we have to strike the balance. You recognize the importance. I mean, but also it's not a hill to die on.
No, I agree, and that's
it
what I
still has
wanted
the
to-
same meaning if you flip it around. But I think that was the thought process, that when people pick it up to read it, they need to know that the board values what it brings and the developmental needs of the students. And here goes the policy.
Right. And I think where I come, I mean, just me personally in my seat is just a more cautionary position. So I would say, leading with the purpose of this policy is to establish, is just a more, like, I'm concerned about, just, the AI and the exposure to the technology. So that's why I asked that. So I understand. Yeah.
Well, thank you all for your feedback.
Anyway, I really, really appreciate all that you put together. I think just again, as everybody is set up here, just receiving board comments and I don't know, this just feels like like you said, a good place to start, and hearing you, sir, I really appreciated just that you're acknowledging, that there are concerns and that we are trying to do right by our students. And I think this is important for us to put this in place. So thank you.
All right.
Anything else, or what do you need? Did you have another comment, Mr. Martin? No? Okay.
I don't need anything. I mean, I have been tasked for this for the last few months, so
Yeah, no.
I've
appreciate it.
been revving the engine and doing my research. I'm looking forward to next steps and engaging in some great conversation.
Great. Thank you, sir. All right, 10.2, we have our budget development process, the 2027 calendar being proposed and presented. Ms. Hoover?
Good evening, Chair Torres, Dr. Gurley, and school board members. Tonight, you have in front of you as an information item, the budget development calendar. The budget development process is a year-round process for the school division, starting in July. And we're bringing you the calendar tonight as information, and you can see from the calendar, our next meeting will be next week with City Council to go over a budget amendment, start the conversation on school funding, school construction, sales tax, and other items that may come up during the meeting. This calendar is flowing at this point as we finalize some of the dates, and we will bring it back to you next month for approval. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Ms. Dooley, do you have anything that you wanted to mention or talk about?
Where I know this is happening throughout and not directly with us, but where are the meetings with teachers? Are teachers meeting with principals and then that comes to you? Or I know you're meeting with some teacher representatives monthly.
It's
What we usually do is we encourage the principals to get feedback from their teachers and staff and how they put forth their budgets for their school. And if they have any budget requests, then they can formulate them and bring them
Yeah,
forward.
'cause we, last school year, the 25-26 school year, we didn't do, I personally didn't do meetings directly with teachers with the budget outside of the survey. Now, in my meetings I do the regular meetings with the CEA president, and absolutely things come up in that process. And then we do the meetings with the PTOs and the citywide PTA.
Yes, I think, I mean, once we approve this at our next meeting, then I guess CEA specifically would know the calendar so that they, as their leadership meets with you in those monthly meetings to bring items in a timely fashion. And then in looking at this, am I correct that in the past, it's been a little bit awkward in that December meeting where sometimes we're getting the first presentation at the same time that city council is alongside us? Is that adjusted?
Yes, and we've had a lot of conversation. I put my glasses on so I can see Ms. Hoover. Um, we really wanted to sunset the December meeting. Because I think the December meeting, over time has become a little confusing for people because we are sometimes giving a really big number. We don't have any feedback from the governor's budget yet. It's a whole lot of what ifs. We pushed back to them and said, we think we should sunset the December meeting, but they still wanted to have the meeting and discuss. Ms. Hoover, help me remember.
They wanted to discuss high-level topics like collective bargaining, maintenance, transportation.
Yes, and I mean, for the record, I think that I don't know that we need to talk about those things at that meeting because collective bargaining is not going to change. The number is the number. We knew when we made the last budget how much we would be asking for. It's not going to change. Those contracts are already in place. And then the contracts that come from the city, I mean, we also, again, you all don't have any control over the number that they're going to provide to us. I think it's just a meeting for the sake of meeting. And I don't think that that's their intention, and I don't want it to sound that way, but I just don't think it's just a purposeful There's nothing new going to happen in that meeting.
I think to your point too, I think the transportation and the maintenance dictated by them
But I mean,
is typically always a line item that gets adjusted down as we go through the process, and we're kind of at the mercy of them working through their budget to get to those numbers. Is that correct?
That's correct. I mean, in December, all I can give you is historical trends and forecast something. And then as you have seen during the budget process, the number has gone down because they have to work through their budgeted numbers to
Right.
give us a number.
nothing new is, I just would say to the board, nothing new will come of that meeting. And we brainstormed, we thoughtfully brainstormed what that meeting could look like, having no new information. And it was just really difficult to come up with something that would make that meeting be purposeful, for both entities.
So maybe Chair Torres, if you could have some conversations maybe with Mayor Wade, just to talk more about that. And it's something that maybe we keep proposed as a hold on the calendar in the event, I don't know, if something transpires that necessitates, but that could be removed if it wasn't needed.
Yeah, and sir, I was curious, like, did you speak with Mr. Sanders about this meeting specifically and that direction came from council, or do you have any more info on that?
I talked to Mr. Sanders. I believe Ms. Hoover talked to Ms. Hamel. And then we shared just, what our concerns were. And not necessarily concerns, because I don't want to frame it like that, but just that nothing new would be happening at that meeting. And I know that we had gotten some feedback that I think they had a little bit of heartburn at, like the number went down. And I know Miss Osherin had mentioned that at one of the meetings we were at, like, hey, the number changed. And so I think we shared that, and this is what came back, that they still wanted to have that meeting, and these are the things we can talk about.
Well, in anticipation of the fact that we have a meeting with them next week.
Sure.
I mean, I will try and put a pin in this, but if not, somebody remind me or feel free to bring it up on your own as a question and a conversation point with them, as there are some other things that I plan to discuss with them then. So thank you. Any other questions, Ms. Dooley? Ms. Cooper? Ms. Burns?
Thank you. Glad we're talking about the December 9th meeting. I had this in my notes, thinking similarly, like what is the purpose of that meeting? What are the overarching themes that we continue to hear? And what I had in my notes for that December 9th meeting was specifically discussing the funding formula, how the city funds our school district, that the last time, and I think the time before, maybe even the time before, we've talked about there is this incredible amount of uncertainty around that formula, and no one is sure when it was developed, and no one is quite sure how they picked that number, and no one's quite sure why we don't follow that number, but maybe we'll do this number. And so on my heart was, hey, if you want to have a meeting to have a meeting, let's talk about the funding formula and how we got here and where we really need to be. I think, you know, this district has had deferred maintenance, deferred um, projects, priorities long enough on the heels of prior leadership, really to most of us. And I think it is time that we have a funding formula that reflects the needs of our students and our division. And we need a city council that hears that and that can then work with their teams to provide greater predictability for long-term planning. That's part of why we get into these conversations about, well, I thought it was this number and I thought it was that number. Right. Yeah. Because there's no predictability. There's no formula. There's no true accountability by which we get to a number. And so I think this is part of, if we're going to have a meeting, let's make good use of it. And let's talk about historically over time, where have we landed in comparison to what the city charter says they're going to do? And I think Mr. Maddox has done some really great work since coming onto the city as the new city attorney in looking at contracts, looking at what's been in place and what people have been doing. And I would, implore him to do the same with this if that's the meeting we're going to have. But I hope we can have a meaningful discussion about that, and that gone are the days of deferred, and that we can really have some predictability again for that long-term planning. Because I mean, we can say we have contracts and we're going to honor them. And out of the gate, we're looking at $3.5 million without adding any additional staff or resources or programming to our school district. But what does that truly mean on the other side? And maybe that is the conversation they want to have. I don't know. I don't hear from counselors often, so I'm not sure unless I reach out myself. But so this perhaps could be an opportunity again to talk at that August 12th meeting. But if we're going to have a meeting, then it is on my heart to talk about the funding formula and what this really looks like.
Yep.
So thank you.
And Miss Hoover and I, we did talk about that. And one of the things Miss Hoover enlightened me on, that it's a conversation that needs to be had. It's come up, but it's a conversation that we should be having long before we get into the thick of the budget. And so, I think I'm quoting her on this, and if I'm quoting you incorrectly, please let me know. One of the things she said, so say if we have that conversation in December, then more than likely it would be applicable for the subsequent budget, because we would be in the mid-flight trying to address it. Yeah.
And yes, I think that's understandable. And I think that's where we continually get in this place of, well, next time. Well, we are long far from next time. And we have got to right this ship in a fiscally responsible way, and that is the duty of the school board. And that is what we are here to do, is set a responsible budget for this division. And if we continue to have uncertainty from the city, even as far as, we need to go, I understand going in front of city council in just a few weeks, which we'll hear about more, uncertainty of funding. And that's just not acceptable. That's not how we run a division. It's not how we run our businesses. And our students deserve better, and so does our staff. Thank you.
And hopefully what they will see from us is, Ms. Hoover normally brings this to the board in September. So we are starting the budget process earlier. She didn't point out on the budget calendar for the public, but based on feedback from you all, we are planning the September the 23rd engagement so that we can get the community involved. We are going to solicit assistance from the citywide PTO. I did have a opportunity to speak to Sandra Velez yesterday, and she's on board. So we do want to get a lot of community partners involved so that we can have diverse groups, diverse representation at that meeting based on socioeconomic status, demographics. We don't want to cater this event to one person, so that you can get the perceptions and perspectives of different folks as you all build this budget.
I think what I've
So-
appreciated as well is with, starting earlier, we've been able to, as a board, and over the summer, our family engagement team and communications staff has been able to go into the community, and already start soliciting feedback. And some of us were even here yesterday for PL Palooza, meeting with staff and using our charts and glitter stars, which the teachers loved. Uh, and so to start soliciting feedback and hearing that they're very appreciative of that. So I appreciate you and your staff hearing that we want to start engagement sooner. So thank you.
Ms. Bryant?
So, since we have been saying the same things over and over again at council, perhaps we should not do that. We should maybe make it into a community engagement session where, since it seems that when council receives a lot of pressure from the community, quickly budgetary decisions are made. We've seen that over the past few months. So maybe that should be like a joint community session where community members can come voice the same concerns. I think, to your point, we should bring up the formula discussion in the meeting on the 12th, but like maybe it should be more of like a town hall. And if council can agree to come listen to the concerns of the community regarding our schools, I think that that might be a little bit more effective, just to like get the funding that we need. But I agree with all of the comments that have been made. Thank you.
Mr. Meyer?
Yeah, one, regarding the December meeting, I do think we need to educate the council on what we do and what the schools do in entirety. And unfortunately, some of the meeting I feel like we've had in that December is educating them about things. So I do wonder if the chair and Dr. Gurley could go give a presentation to like a state of the union, but basically the state of the schools or something like that, to city council in December, to prep them and educate them about all the things we do and our socioeconomic status of our students, the needs and the services we deliver to them. Okay, just throwing that out there. I would agree. We've been talking about adjusting the formula. I remember Councilor Snook agreeing, saying we needed to change it, and I would love to have that conversation. Maybe that is part of the conversation, having the community in. I'm really excited about the engagement session. I'm glad to see that added to our budget calendar here. I know that's something Ms. Cooper has been talking about a long time, and I'm looking forward to doing that with everybody, and again, hearing from the community, and I hope we can, I think, deliver that meeting in a very interesting format. Finally, I did want to flag on here, and I think it's a little bit indirect here. Obviously, there's a sales tax referendum that's happening in November, which is They're going to be very important to our capital improvement program budget. I would like colleagues to maybe see us form an ad hoc committee with some of the local parents and PTOs and our communications team and staff in order to coordinate, making sure we're educating the public. I've already seen some good education communications from our team already, but I know there are parents that are very interested in helping with yard signs, et cetera. And obviously, I think we have a political lift that we need to do to help educate the public also as in our roles. And so I would suggest, Chair, maybe I'm happy to serve on that with somebody else, but that we start coordinating that because we don't have that much time before November. Other than that, that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate all the comments and all of the work. And we do, I'm just going to kind of repeat that we are meeting with City Council next Wednesday at 5 p.m. in City Space. So would appreciate just public support and just that awareness that we are and have been asked to meet to talk a little bit about the committee work that was tasked by the board and by council to kind of look at what some of the school needs are, the priorities of Charlottesville City Schools. And we have been pushing that out in our communications. And then also just an awareness of some of the funding and the contingency, and that'll come up, I think, in a little bit with Ms. Hoover. But I appreciate also the fact that we will be reaching out and continuing to reach out to the community and staff and everybody regarding budget engagement and then also priorities that the board would like to elevate along with Dr. Gurley throughout this next academic year. So thank you. And then I think the next one is the budget amendment. So
All right.
10.3.
I'm going to present to you the budget amendment for the FY 26-27 budget. This is another information item this evening. No action is requested tonight. We will return next month and ask the board to consider and approve the budget amendment. Please feel free to ask questions throughout the presentation. I'm happy to provide clarification to the information I'm going to present. Since the school board adopted their budget on February 19th of 2026, there have been several updates. First, the first update is the General Assembly adopted and the governor signed the state budget by June 30th deadline. On July 2nd, BDOE released the calc tool to school divisions with the final state funding allocations. And as a result, Charlottesville City Schools received an additional $318,847 in state revenues. These increases is primarily attributed to updated revenue projections for sales tax and lottery proceeds. The next update relates to city budget adoption. When the city adopted its budget on April the 9th, the state budget had not yet been finalized. Because there was a significant difference between the House and the Senate proposals for K-12 funding, the city appropriated the school division's budget $2 million less than the school board's request and placed the $2 million in a school operations contingency, subject to future city council approval. In addition, city council included a provision that any additional state revenue received by the school division would be shared equally, with 50% allocated to the city and 50% allocated to the schools. This slide summarizes the city's appropriation calculation. On March 2nd, the school board requested an additional city appropriation of $2,569,071 to support the 26-27 budget. This amount goes towards personnel cost increase from the collective bargaining agreements. When the city adopted its budget, it set aside 2 million of the request in a school operation contingency. This means the city funded the $569,071. Since the schools received an additional $318,847 in state revenue, and council directed that those funds be shared equally, the city's 50% share is $159,424. That amount is deducted from the $2 million in the school's operation contingency, resulting in a city appropriation of $1,840,576. When combined with the $569, $5,669,071 was appropriated during the city budget, the total increase would be $2,409,647. The school division's share of the additional state revenue is $159,423. The superintendent is recommending an additional 1% salary increase for administrative staff, bringing the total increase to 4%. The increase will align the administrative salaries with the state approved 4%. That was approved by the state for SOQ funded positions. The middle bubble illustrates the funding available after applying the school's share of an additional state revenue to the proposed 1% increase. After funding the 1% recommendation, $73,338 remains available. This amount could cover approximately 8% of the cost of providing an additional 1% increase, bringing the total administrative salary increase to 5%. The remaining balance of the $12,747 would be funded from vacancy savings from the reconfiguration after the budget was adopted. The technical adjustments that go along with the FY 26-27 budget are due to personnel costs associated with the collective bargaining agreements. We initially budget for those in the general fund. And once the salary and benefit allocations for the special revenue funds are finalized, the corresponding budget transfer from the general fund is appropriate to the special revenue funds to reflect where the personnel costs are incurred. This budget amendment includes those transfers to ensure the special revenue funds budget accurately reflect the approved salary and benefit cost. This slide summarizes the proposed amendments to the 26-27 budget. The overall result is a net increase of $159,423 to the 26-27 budget. Our next steps is this presentation, along with an additional slide outlining the 1.8 million will be used to support collective bargaining agreements, will be presented to the Joint City Council School Board meeting next Wednesday, August the 12th. City Council will be asked to take action on the appropriation of these funds at their regularly scheduled meeting on August 17th. And then this will come back to the school board at its next regularly scheduled meeting, September the 3rd, for action. Any questions?
I will open it up to questions, but I have some comments first that I'd like to offer. Again, this decision to have an ordinance, a city budget appropriation ordinance specifically related to Charlottesville City Schools was something new. It was not anything that I've ever seen city council do. It was a surprise. It was not discussed with the school board. It was something that they brought forward during some of their budget work sessions. I went back to, I did not listen to the entire meeting. I listened to the meetings online while they were happening. I believe some of my colleagues did as well. My intent was to show up at the final special meeting, but there was no public comment. And I found it interesting in looking through the minutes from these meetings, specifically if people are interested in looking at the April 2nd meeting. It's basically the introduction to council about this idea of appropriating funds. And again, I believe you presented it because there was such a discrepancy between the House and the Senate budgets. There was talk about what if the schools got a heck of a lot more money? With all due respect, they've been great partners. City Council has been great partners. And I feel like we have been great partners as well. And it was a bit insulting for me. I'm speaking just as an individual school board member. I found it a little bit insulting that they thought we would act, or if we received a large amount of money, that we would hold on to it and do something that was fiscally irresponsible. That's how I interpreted it. So the fact that they held this $2 million, again, our budget was based solely on supporting our staff and collective bargaining and taking care of our staff. And in the minute meetings, it talked about how they would potentially split or what they wanted to do with any excess funds. And it does say that I believe the city attorney, Mr. Maddox, advised council on different legal methods for handling excess funds with the consent of the school board. And I read that and I thought, I don't remember having a discussion or anybody coming to us to talk to us about this. And so we are talking about an excess of $300,000. And again, in looking at, and again, as far as our fiscal responsibility, and we have been talking with council and we all are aware of the fact that collective bargaining, which we are all supportive of, is the big budget number that we are asking for ongoing support for our staff. And there has been the question about, what happens to adjust admin pay, which we knew was something that we as a board wanted to and were wanting to tackle and to address, but had concerns based on, I think, city council's posturing and their concerns and them having to look at just the bigger picture and potentially not having money to add to that. So I think for Dr. Gurley and for this board to be supportive of taking this 300 or asking to take this $318,000 and apply it to our admin staff, because they definitely deserve that and more. But we are being asked to split that, and the fact that we have to go before them and ask for the money on the 15th or the 17th, I guess. Again, I just want this on the record that I'm really not happy. I plan to share this as respectfully as possible in our work session next week. And I hope that this message trickles up, over, out to them so that they hear it. It's been on my list to talk to the mayor, and he is out of the country until next Tuesday. So I do have a couple of things to bring to him to just share, and we as a board can continue to have this conversation public facing with them in the room, and then also in front of the public again as well. So those are my comments for now, and I will open it up to Mr. Meyer. Do you have any comments about this, questions? Ms. Bryant?
My only comment is that if we do not compensate our administrators better, we will lose administrators. That's basic. And I think that we need to, similar to Chair Torres's comments, like on the record, I also want to say that like we need our administrators to make the schools run and to keep them going. And so like everyone should be compensated to our best ability. And I think that's why we are so supportive of collective bargaining. But leaving out our administrators of that, like leaving them out of that process is something that I don't think is fair or good. And I think my colleagues agree with that. And that's why we're trying to make it better with this appropriation of funds for that. And I just hope that we get the support from council on this, because we're seeing such good progress with our schools. And yeah, that's well documented. And so we just need to make sure that our administrators know that we appreciate them. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Burns.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with proposed here. Look forward to honoring our administrators, honoring their work. I think when we talk about retention and what that looks like and promoting within, it becomes increasingly difficult to promote from within, from teacher coordinator level positions to administrative positions when the pay just is not comparable. And so I look forward to approving that and continuing the conversation. I think this is a good start, but hopefully we don't stop there. I think they deserve additional compensation to this as well. And quite frankly, I'll leave my comments brief on going back to 2 million, but I'm disgusted. I think it is poor look on the city to even not have conversations with us as a board, but to simply ask us to come back and ask for money that was already approved is, I think it's disgraceful, quite honestly. And I hope that when the mayor returns from his travels, there will be a conversation about that specifically and what it looks like for us to work together. There has been no indication of financial mismanagement on behalf of this board or any prior board, and to even intimate or give, any appearance of such is irresponsible on behalf of city council. And I look forward to having that conversation again in public. And I want our students, our staff, our teachers, and our CEA union to hear the same thing, and to be there to support us. As Ms. Bryant pointed out, council seems to have different opinions when there are more people in the room. And so I'm asking for more people in the room. Please come, please show up, please support your teachers, support the union workers, support our staff and administrators, and ultimately our students. We do have better outcomes and our students are more successful when we are caring for them, and that is financial responsibility, fiscal responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cooper?
I agree with what my colleagues have already said. And so I think it's important, kind of speak to what Ms. Bryant says. The more people in the room, the more pressure that you put on city council, the quicker and faster they move. So hopefully folks support the fact that we're trying to support our administrators and they show up August the 17th at city council and kind of share how they feel. And hopefully we get enough people in the room to talk about the budget and bring awareness to this issue. Thank you.
Ms. Dooley? You're good? All right. I don't know if you need anything from us. I personally am supportive of the additional 1% for the 5%. So I don't know if we need the extra. So I'm personally okay with 5. I don't know how the rest of my colleagues feel if you need that information or that money is there and it's just a matter of,
From the read of the room, when we bring it back, we'll have the additional 2% in there.
It's good.
okay, thank you.
Thank
Appreciate it.
you.
All right, and now we have another policy update, please. Thank you, Ms. Swift.
Okay, good evening. Tonight I'm presenting the VSBA July 2026 policy updates, part 1. There will be a part 2 in September. They just released more updates recently for your first review. So the updated policies are provided in a red line format with new language shown in red and deleted language shown with a strike through. And the attached summary table also describes those proposed changes. I do want to point out that VSBA did not provide a red line copy for policy JO, student education records, and instead provided a complete sample policy because there were so many significant changes and revisions that included necessary legal updates to ensure compliance with all relevant laws and regulations. So it's just a full sample policy. So at this time, we request that the board receive these policy updates for first review tonight, and then we ask that you take action at the September 3rd board meeting.
Thank you. Any
Mhm.
questions, Mr. Meyer?
Yeah, just, I'm gonna trust VSBA, obviously did their homework, but do we have legal Sands Anderson review these also for us? Or does our legal counsel review these too?
So because we pay their counsel to
Yeah.
do it,
Okay.
we do not. The only time we get our counsel is when we deviate from the policy. So if you say, I want to add this to the policy before we bring it back to the public, we give it to our attorneys to look at. But Micah, who's one of their legal people, goes through these policies with their team. So we've paid them already to vet it with code.
And they have a new director this year, and she is very thorough. And so we had a meeting the other day around these policies, and they are making sure, that's why we'll have another review next month, because they are going through with a fine tooth comb with all these sample policies and making sure that they are all up to code.
Thank you. Ms. Bryant, any questions? Ms. Byrne?
Not at this time.
No. Ms. Cooper? Ms. Dooley? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, the next item is 11.0, which is board response to written reports. We have our vacancy update, our special education family engagement written report, a safety training update, and school board committee reports. Any questions, comments? Mr. Meyer, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I just, really appreciated the written reports. There was a number of them there. I think it was a new one that I hadn't seen before also on the special education report. And I did forward that to some constituents I think who are interested in that. Lots of good information in there, and thank you, Ms. Rasnick, for putting that together. Ms. Lewis, want to congratulate you. We're continuing to trend in the right direction on our hiring and retention. I do hope the public understands that I think we're probably one of the best staffed districts in this in the whole state. I think there's a lot of reasons to that. But I think we were, again, only have a couple teachers we're missing and a couple other staff, and that is going down each year. So thank you and your team for all your efforts, and Dr. Gurley for that. Thank you.
Ms. Bryant?
Yes, just on the special education family engagement, I really did appreciate that report being created for this, and also meeting with Dr. Gurley and Mr. Meyer. I think it was last month, and we discussed like how is parent outreach happening, and what even can board members do to make sure that we're like spreading the word too when we're approached with questions. And I really also have appreciated is it called the Guide to the New Year? Yeah, that resource. Excellent. I loved it. So thank you all for your work on that. And also all of the comms has been so thorough throughout the summer. And I do feel like based on social media alone, like parents have a lot of resources and access to materials to prepare for this school year. So thank you to the comms team for that too.
Ms. Burns?
Yeah, I've appreciated Dr. Gurley, you receiving feedback and working with your team to help us all become a bit more presentable in the community and engaged on different levels. So thank you for hearing that, receiving that. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Ms. Cooper, any comments regarding the board written reports?
No comments. Also want to say, it's been good to see CCS staff in the community. It looks like we had a really good turnout for West Haven Day. And just seeing the engagement happening, was, very heartwarming. I see a lot of people was connecting with Dr. Gurley at Community Day. And so I think presence matter to knowing who your superintendent is and who is the staff that's working inside the schools with the kiddos. And so I appreciate that. And I hope that we can continue to be visible so that folks see us. We're in the community, we're talking to people, and we're building trusting relationships.
Thank you, Ms. Dooley. Okay, thank you. So now we're at 12.0, which is comments from members of the community. This is our second opportunity for anybody, if you'd like to come up to the podium and make public comment. Now is your opportunity, and I don't think we had anybody signed up online. All right, thank you. And now we are at 13.0, comments from the board. So I'll start right down with Ms. Dooley, if you have anything.
Not to go back to the written reports, but I really like them in that adoption. I don't know, that kind of transition that we've made. It's great information. Keep them coming. On the consent agenda was our wellness policy revision that I just wanted to highlight a few things. Mr. Jones, welcome. I'm happy to have you here. I'm sure you are enjoying the pleasure of being at this meeting. But included in there, I serve on the Student Health Advisory Board, was Mr. Jones and his team's response to student requests for different menu options. And so hopefully that will continue this year. And then included in there and related to previous conversations, in our wellness policy, it talks about the need for appropriate facilities to support student health and nutrition. And so just again, highlighting the fact that 2 of our elementary schools do not have cafeterias is something that I think we need to just keep top of mind as we are continuing in these conversations. But mostly just excited for Wednesday of next week to start. My household is really eagerly awaiting a return to some sort of routine. So thank you to everybody, all the work, the heavy lift of a new school year. And yeah, look forward to Wednesday.
Thank you. Ms. Cooper?
I don't have anything.
All right, Ms. Burns?
Sure, thank you. I wanted to take a moment just to make the community aware of some events happening this weekend as we get ready to bring kids back to school. I'm gonna tell you a few. So first we'll start with a community shoe discount that's at Legends here in Charlottesville with Stop the Violence 434 and Buck Squad. Families can receive $20 and now I'm hearing $30 off sneakers at Legends, and that starts at 11 a.m. on Saturday. And then there's a back to school day party for the kids, grades 5 through 9 at Mexicali downtown, games, vendors, music, and more. And that's hosted by our very own Mr. Denzel Jones. So people are very excited to see Denzi back in the mix. And then we have 3 events happening from the Charlottesville proper downtown area, starting at the Boys and Girls Club with the Kicks and Cuts Back to School Bash, providing haircuts, braids, nail services, giveaways with sneakers, community vendors, and then at Charlottesville Middle School, the Charlottesville City School Division having their principals in attendance where families can learn more about the open houses on Monday, receive help with registration, discuss transportation, and ask any questions before the school year begins. And I understand there's a very special presentation from the CMS Steppers at noon. So add that to your calendar. And vaccines will also be provided there as well. And then walk on over to Forest Hills Park for the Sounds of Summer with Seville Parks and Rec. They're hosting inflatable water slide, splash pad, free food from several different food trucks, live music with a box lunch band, free bike helmets, and community partners highlighting specific after-school activities and support for after-school and wraparound services, and then information about Parks and Recs programs and offerings. So plenty of opportunities for families to be cared for this weekend. And hopefully we'll see everybody out this weekend and back to school on Wednesday. My house also is waiting with expectant joy. Thank you.
Ms. Bryant.
Yeah, so excited for all of the back to school things. Really appreciated PL Palooza yesterday. It reminded me that like we have educators in our division who are really genuinely like excited about teaching and educating and just being a part of our community. And I think that outweighs any challenges that we face as a division. Like that joy and that excitement is like so important. And it was like just really good to see so many teachers and connect with them and give the hugs and say hello, since they've been out all summer. And I know a lot of them have worked throughout the summer too, just to prepare. So grateful for all of their work. And then I would also say that a highlight of my summer was meeting a parent who said that she was like one of the main reasons why her family is moving to Charlottesville is to attend one of our elementary schools, like for her students to come here. And I think that that's such a great story. And it goes to show like our schools are doing so well, and public education is never too down bad. Let's be clear. Like, I think a lot of people talk about private education and wanting to send their kids to the best school, but that really warmed my heart because like we have a lot of people who are working really hard to make our schools the best that they can be. And in a world where like there's a constant conversation about public versus private or which division is doing better, to know that like parents are moving to Charlottesville for our schools really emphasizes and highlights even more why it's important for city council to fund our schools and to make that a priority, because it's bringing families into the city. Like, and so, yeah, I'm just excited to hear that. And I've really appreciated all of the good feedback I've heard all summer about like how we're doing better with comms and doing better with outreach and engagement. And I just think I'm excited for the new year to start. And I think we're on a good path. And I look forward to all of the work that we'll do this year. So thank you, Dr. Gurley, and thank you to all of the staff.
Thank you. Mr. Meyer.
Yeah, want to echo the communications, I think, from our division have been excellent. Specifically, there was an article about the reading strategy we implement in the different books, everything. And in my household, that landed really well. I wore it today, this shirt. All right. I wore it on the mall, walking around during lunch, and got a lot of comments about it and a lot of nods. So again, I think that is part of a overarching kind of, I don't want to say it's a rebrand, but a new strategy here. And I think that is, again, these simple things like t-shirts or stickers on the backs of the cars are things that I think are really helping our families and our staff have a lot of pride. And then again, help demonstrate to the community amount of people that are again, I think are invested in these institutions and are engaging in them. Along those lines, I did note and hear from a parent who was very excited that we're not restricting the amount of volleyball slots at Charlottesville Middle School for the girls there, and that they're all going to be able to participate. So I know we had talked about that previously, and I want to thank Dr. Gurley and the staff for finding those solutions. Again, I know it's more than volleyball too, that we're going to provide other sports and other after school activities and clubs for those students at CMS. So I wanted to keep on encouraging that. I hope to hear about a spring soccer team for boys and girls, hopefully. I'll just throw that out there. Next thing along those lines too, there might have been a rumor from, I'm very careful with this, but that students might get in for free to our sporting activities when accompanied by an adult. I think that's a great idea. I think we want to encourage, again, we talk about a community that all our students and young adults can go and participate at those games. But if that is the case, I think that'd be a great policy change. If it's not the case, that's unfortunate, but I'd love to think about how we make that happen. Okay.
I'll
And-
reach out to Mr. Jones. I've not heard that.
Okay.
I've not heard that.
Well, we'll see what, there were still a couple more weeks, before I think the season starts or some of our events start, but, I bet we would make up just as much money in selling those kids unhealthy food, all right. Exactly. That too, they'll consider. Finally, we are, I think, gonna have an opportunity in this community to vote on a generational change in our school infrastructure. I just want to remind everybody, I think it was in the news, early November, there will be a sales tax referendum. We want to thank our city council colleagues for making sure that they asked, I think it was the circuit court, to put that on there. It can remodel this building. It would add space to this building. I think a lot of different things. And that's why, colleagues, I think we really need to help educate our community and help sell it. And I hope the community can rally around that and support that too. Okay, so just wanted to make sure we made comment about that, or at least I made a comment about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer, for starting rumors. We appreciate you. Anyway, I do want to thank all of you for your great comments and the conversation tonight. I'm really grateful to be here, starting this new academic year off with all of you. I want to thank you, Dr. Gurley, and your team for the work that you guys completed over the summer. Thank you to all the teachers and staff who were here in summer school supporting our students throughout the summer. Summer graduation was wonderful to attend. No doubt that we are and you are preparing and have prepared the launch for Charlottesville City Schools into another fabulous year. So thank you for that. And I hope everyone had the opportunity, and if not, I believe there's a link out there to listen to Dr. Gurley and his meaningful and personal and inspirational message that you shared with everybody yesterday morning, and challenging us all to continue to do that work and set high expectations for ourselves and every single student and person that we might engage with. So I just thank you again. The board will continue our efforts to engage and receive feedback from the public. Thank you again to those who received a lot of input and feedback from staff yesterday during PL Palooza. We will review data after Dr. Gurley and his team continue, looking at that and start to work towards and fine tune what our board priorities will be for this upcoming year. So a lot of great things on the horizon, and I appreciate you all. And I'm looking forward to this coming academic year.
Chair Torres, we would be remiss if we didn't highlight the fact that reconfiguration is finally coming
Yes,
to
yes, yes.
fruition
Yes,
next week.
please,
And
thank
so
you.
I feel like, yes, round of applause to everyone here sitting on the dais in the audience. And I feel like really, literally every employee of the division has been part of making this come to fruition. And it's a big freaking deal.
It
And so
sure is.
thank you for your efforts, and super excited for the ribbon cutting next week, and sorry for
No,
interrupting.
that's a good interjection. And Mr. Jordan, thank you for being there and working through all of that. We know that was challenging to say the least, but we are grateful that you were there for part of that. So thank you. All right, that is it for board comments. And now Dr. Gurley. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, as was I.
So I just want to start by thanking I know people at home probably can't see, but the division staff, not just the people sitting in this room. Our custodians worked tirelessly this summer because every school got touched in terms of moving. So a lot of people played a part. So I was thinking about who to thank, but I mean, the list is very long. So it happened because of the people who are boots on the ground. I think the theme that you heard throughout you all's comments, the collaboration and the attention to detail, and those are the things that we have on our list, on our punch list. As I think about the conversation that you all are preparing to have with City Council, there are so many wonderful things that are getting ready to happen here. And so I don't want to start releasing all the wonderful things that are happening because, in terms of the communication, and I do want to say one thing, we want to celebrate all the great things. And so one of the things that we are working towards is our annual report. And Ms. Amolchek, I gave her my idea. And if you think that parent guide is beautiful, our annual report will tell the health of our schools. And so as you start to talk to city council, we have to remind them that where people buy their homes is also where they buy their school. And so we have something spectacular to buy here. And as Ms. Bryan said, people are coming here because of the schools. So if you're going to invest in the schools, then that's what will get people here. And we have some stories to tell, some success stories, a lot of success stories about the phenomenal educators and students and support staff who sit in our spaces. So thank you all. I mean, the summer literally felt like 2 weeks long. We do have somewhat of a little identity crisis here in Charlottesville because we are small, but we operate at the pace of something that is 3 times larger with half of the staff. And I think that is something that's remarkable and that we should constantly be praising. So again, I appreciate you all. I appreciate the school board and looking forward to a wonderful school year.
Thank you. Work session wrap up. Do we have anything? All right, thank you. And upcoming meetings, we have August 12th. Again, we have our joint school board city council meeting held at 5 p.m., which is next Wednesday in City Space in the large conference room. And then September 3rd will be our next regular school board meeting here in the media center at 5:30. So thank you, everybody, again.